Paul George said he never wanted to leave L.A., where he is from. He said the Clippers' first offer of 2 years, $60 million was disrespectful. It was. Then he said this.
Then I hear wind of, like, you know, what they're going to give Kawhi. So I'm like, just give me what Kawhi got. Like,
right.
Y'all view us the same. Like, you know, we came here together. We want to finish together. I'll take what Kawhi got. Like, no
cool
problem. I was cool with that. Like,
wow.
And we were still taking less. We were taking less. Kawhi took less. I was like, if Kawhi gonna take less, I'm not gonna say I want more than Kawhi. Like, I'm not gonna, like, it's not about me being paid more than him. Like, I'm gonna take what he got. Y'all give him that, give me that. They didn't want to do that.
Keyshawn, your reaction to what Paul George said?
Man, so if you gave him $150, give me my $150, I'm cool. But you trying to give me 60?
That's what he said. I find that hard to believe.
There's a little complicated math because it was basically he'd have to pick up his option, he'd get paid for that, and then the math of what the other years were in terms of the second apron and the taxes. So it's not quite as bad as it sounds. However,
how is it not quite as bad?
However, no. It's not quite as bad as it sounds because he's not talking about the money he would also get with his opt-in, but it definitely was not an appropriate offer. Regardless, it was not an appropriate
But I'm gonna get the opt-in regardless. I want my extension. I'm gonna get the 50 or the 49 or whatever you was gonna give me on my last year anyway.
Look,
I'm talking about new money. You was gonna give me 60 million on new money? I got 212 on new money. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So that's majorly disrespectful. So you're gonna feel a certain way, okay? And I understand Lars Frank, right? He wants to show Mr. Barmer, look, I can get this done a certain way. I can save us some money. Don't worry about these things. Just let me handle it. So now you can go to the boss. Like in all of our businesses, they like to go to the boss and show him, see, I got it for less. Just pay that dude, man. He's worth it. He just sat there and told you he's willing to accept the same amount of money as his co-partner with no problem at all, and we can run it back. We can end this thing. We can keep trying to get us a championship. But you told him, in his mind, Rachel, regardless of what the math works out to be,
it was still
him and his family, they looking at his agent, they going, 2 years, 60 million, so that means $30 million a year, new money, and I can get 200 plus on the open market. Hey, that doesn't seem like a fair deal to me. It was stupid for the Clippers to do.
Look,
be fair.
To me, this is not a money issue in terms of saving dollars. Steve Ballmer is one of the richest men in America. It was about this new CBA. I know it's boring that we keep talking about sort of minutia and rules and stuff, but...
And aprons.
In aprons. But the truth is, if you go into that second apron, if you go into the most sort of overpaying your guys compared to the rest of the league, you can barely do anything going forward in terms of trades.
It doesn't matter.
Well, no, but here's the thing. I would say that the Clippers had a decision to make. Do they want to invest in this Paul George, Kawhi era more?
Yes.
To the tune of not only all these tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, but in terms of this is going to be our team until these guys are 36, 37, 38, right? Okay. They clearly decided somewhere along the way this
to stay mediocre then.
Well, I think they kind of decided to call it, right? That it wasn't worth, if that was the choice, if the choice was be locked into this versus not, that is the choice they made, plus you had to pay Harden. I'm not saying I would have made that choice, but I see what they were thinking. I don't think it was, oh, we don't want to give him an extra few dollars. I will say, though, a couple things. I will say, first of all, if you've made that choice, why not make it earlier in the season and either get something for him or handle the negotiations differently? If you are eventually going to offer to pay him what Kawhi did, to string that out, I think, is really part of the problem, and that's why he led with talking about how it was disrespectful, is now he doesn't trust them. Now he's like, okay, you didn't offer me a good deal to begin with. You also didn't offer me what Kawhi got when Kawhi took his extension. And by the way, as he said, that was at a bit of a discount. And Paul was willing to be at a bit of a discount. And the fact that they still didn't go in there. So when
they didn't get, you say trust. How can I trust you're not going to trade me when you didn't want to give me no trade clause?
This is the thing, right? So Paul goes in there. Not only does he have more money sitting on the table and more length of a contract, which is important at that age, in Philadelphia and probably Orlando and other places, but the trust factor. And I think this is where the Clippers' past deeds are coming back to haunt them. We all remember what happened with Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was a free agent. They brought him into the building. They put up this whole sort of display about him and his lifetime as a Clipper. He walks into the arena where they've led him, and they are raising his number into the rafters and talking about him being a Clipper for life. This is what we see as your future. We're going to raise this number. 6 months later, they traded him to Detroit. 6 months later, which was not the team that ideally someone who wanted to contend for titles would want to play for. And so I think Paul was thinking about that too, and especially with the way things were strung out over the year, I think that puts you in that mindset more. And so that's why the Clippers' decision is sort of, you can see their logic, but how they did it, I think, really came back to haunt them.
I don't see the logic, because if you're an older team and you got 2 older players already, and I'm Brook with 3 older players, so they brought Westbrook back, you allow one of your biggest pieces to get away. You can't replace that. Where are you going to replace that for less money? And you say they're worried about the repeater thing and all the taxes and stuff. 3, 4 years from now, it ain't going to matter, because you're going to be sorry. That's just the bottom line. And I know Mr. Ballmer's not worried about the money. But when you are an executive and you could show the owner, look at me, I'm smart, I did this, you get a little pat on the back. That's what they be thinking about. I see it all the time in professional sports, the industry we work in. Everybody's trying to save dollars that ain't their money. You're trying to build a team to compete right now. You want to put Kawhi around a bunch of young players that don't know how to play? Oh, well.
Okay, so here's how I see the truth of what just
Clippers
happened
being
to Paul
Clippers.
George. Paul just said in that soundbite we just witnessed and heard, y'all view us as the same.
Right.
No, they don't, and they never did. It was always Kawhi was number 1 and Paul was 1A. And we talked about Batman and Robin. Well, this was clearly to them a Batman and a Robin. These weren't 2 co-Batmen. This was Batman and Robin. And they told him with their first disrespectful offer, however you want to sort of nuance it, but they just showed him. They just said, you know what? We're good. You should go, whatever you got out there, just take it and go. And I'm not saying that they were right about this, but their attitude toward him has been that from the start. And I definitely think he is a 1A, but he's a really good 1A, as he will prove this year with Joel Embiid. But the point was, Kawhi did take a little less than max. And if you could get them both under your cap at a little less than max, I would rather do that and still have my 1A on my side. Yeah, you still get your 1A. I would still do that.
But you do that in November or October or whatever it was. You get that deal done. Don't have me something at 60.
Trust me on this. But they don't love Paul's intangibles. They just don't. He's got all kinds of ability. We get that. Just his intangibles, they don't love. And they decided to cut bait with it and bank on Kawhi staying healthy, which is, God bless you, but go ahead.
I think the Clippers saw this a little bit as a prove-it year for Paul, just with the injuries he's had. No. I'm not saying that they should have.
I'm listening.
I'm saying that there was a little bit of a feeling, certainly on the player side, of feeling like, okay, you want to see, is this team really getting, again, when you're talking about possibly committing to this is going to be our roster for the next 3 years because you can't do anything else. You want to know, are these guys going to even hold up? I mean, that would be one of the questions we'd be asking if they re-signed and put themselves in that position. We would say, oh, they're so injured. They've only won, 1 or 2 playoff series since these guys have been together. All that stuff.
It's been a disaster.
So
it has.
So for them to say we need to see more. Again, I understand that thinking. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also understand how Paul George is like, what are you talking about? This is what I've done. And look, I don't think there's any question that they have seen Kawhi as sort of the number 1, if you want to put it that way. And by the way, Kawhi has a higher ceiling than Paul George. When he's playing at his best, he is one of the best players in the league. Top 3, top 5 when he is playing his best.
He's an assassin.
I didn't say anything. I'm waiting for Rachel to finish. I didn't say nothing. I hear you.
Yes. But Paul George is able to reach a pretty high percentage of what Kawhi at his best can do. And Kawhi is not playing at his best and hasn't for, any long period in a while. He had a few months this season.
He did.
Sort of
but he was the best player in the league for a couple months.
But that reliability calls a little bit into question. Again, if you're Paul's side, when he says you looked at us the same, you're right, they didn't.
They did not.
But his point is, look, I've played more games. I played as a Clipper. He's played wildly more playoff games than Kawhi
Wildly.
has as a
Right.
Clipper.
Look, there's no question that a healthy Kawhi is more desirable than a healthy Paul George.